forum for employee representatives. We probably grab an employee from each department for a representative, and they can provide input. One of the other things I want to start looking at is a wellness program. As y'all know, wellness programs typically have very small costs for the employer, but the idea is with those small investments, you get a big return on lower healthcare costs because you have healthier employees. That's the whole reasoning behind a wellness program. I worked for a large corporation before. They had a really detailed, complicated wellness program, and it was, kind of a lot to keep up with, but there was a lot of good parts to it. So I really like to create something that fits the size. I know One Digital is going to help us with that. They're not talking about that tonight, but this is just to kind of set the table for something we want to start. Currently, really the only thing we do is we provide a gym discount at one facility. It's a gym on 98, and that's fine. What I'd like to move to is a program where people could pick their gym and they would get reimbursed at the end of the year depending on participation. So the programs I'm familiar with, you have an app and you're able to check in when you go to this facility on the app or whatever, and you have to verify it, and there's different ways it could be done, but let's say you meet that goal of how often you attend, then you get a certain amount of money back at the end of the year, whether that's half of your gym membership or up to $200, $300, whatever that number is. We'll figure all that out, and this is something that I see the benefits committee helping with is, what do you guys want? How do you think this should be done? So that I'm not just dictating everything and what this is going to look like, and then the employees will have ownership in it, and I think they'll be more invested in it. So that I'd like to start that pretty soon in 26, get the committee going, maybe improve the gym offerings, and then move on more of the meatier things. The committee can start to tackle things like, just an example, there's nutrition programs, there's financial wellness, there's all kinds of training that these wellness programs provide. And like I said, I'm sure One Digital can help with that as we go down that road. But I think it's time to start looking at it, and I think we would see the benefits, hopefully, in our healthcare costs down the road. At the point, right? See, it was working. This one, right? Mm-hmm.
That's happened before.
Yeah.
What's that mean?
So the next thing I want to talk about is our 401k program. That is the only current active retirement program for the employees at High Navarre. Of course, there's a pension that older employees are still part of that we're maintaining. Everybody knows that. But none of the new employees are part of that. It's been frozen for, 6 years now, I think. So we currently match 5%. I've done some kind of talking to some of our peers here in Northwest Florida, and for similar-sized not-for-profit water companies, our plan's not quite as strong. So we're kind of looking at some options, maybe increase that 1% this year. The fiscal impact of that is about $25,000 a year based on what people currently match, what people currently contribute, and that match is currently 5%. So we think this makes sense, and one of the main reasons I wanted to present this was because we're looking at some good options tonight on healthcare where we may actually save some money. So this would be a way where we're continuing to increase that benefit package, continuing to increase, be a competitive employer. Some other ideas with the 401k plan, which we're not getting into tonight, just the ideas we may, like I said, go back when we create this benefits committee that they can take up. Some entities do essentially automatic enrollment, where you start the job and you're enrolled in the 401k and you have to opt out, whereas right now it's an opt-in. So it increases participation. I think where we see the lower participation sometimes is for the younger folks that just start thinking about their retirement. And of course, 10, 12 years later, they regret not participating in it. So there's a discussion to be had there. I'm not saying we want to do that. The other one is automatic increases. Some places will bump you up your contribution 1% a year, and you have to opt out of that. So there's different things that you can do to incentivize people's participation. We want to look at that, and like I said, that's where we want to talk through these things with the benefits committee and come back with some good recommendations next year when we make changes to our benefits again. So anyway, that's just something to think about in addition. So that brings us to our main topic, and I want to thank One Digital for coming tonight. They've worked hard to put together some good options here. This is Chad Rich and Jeannie Hansen with One Digital. They'll be presenting tonight. And usually what we're faced with, and we've been with Blue Cross Blue Shield for a couple of years now, we've been faced with these double-digit increases. Seems like the last couple of years, and this year we've actually got multiple good options, in my opinion. We've got an option to keep what we have for a single-digit increase. We've got a United Healthcare option, which is essentially a slight cost savings, and we've got an HMO option, which is an even bigger cost savings. And they're going to go over all that, go over all the options. And like I said, there's no bad choice here. We think we have some really good options tonight. We're going to present the pros and cons of that, and hopefully select something there at the 6 o'clock board meeting. So hopefully we've left plenty of time for them to present. Lots of good feedback after that. So with that, I'll turn it over to you guys. Let you present.
Thank you very much. So,
Do you have another slide, Jeff, or is it?
I have this one. Are you
Okay.
ready for it?
Yeah, I just
Okay.
didn't know if you had all the
Yeah.
slides in, okay.
I have this one in. They have the packet. It's in their packet.
Okay,
They're going to follow
perfect.
along that way.
Okay.
and what Jeannie and I felt like, we wanted to obviously start off with just a little bit about, so One Digital, we're based down of Atlanta. We started off as a family agency, actually, in 1976, downtown Pensacola. And as the world turns and becomes more complicated and sophisticated, it became necessary for us to join a larger team with a lot more compliance expertise. I mean, there's a lot that, whether it's FMLA, whether it's a lot of things that we're dealing with, but we're focused on human resource consulting, on benefits, on wealth and retirement, and property and casualty, and so we really have a whole world type of platform that we can bring to clients now. So that's a little bit about us, and I'll jump right into this. And I wanted to, you are our client. We work for you. We are not working for the insurance company. When it comes time for Florida Blues renewal, we pull the census and we immediately start to kind of make sure that we're in a defensive measure, turning around and making sure that we are getting ready for RFP. So we literally create a request for proposal. Our attempt is mirroring benefits. So when we send it out, we are trying to either duplicate or show things that are possibly better, and also looking at just different plan design fluctuations, because we unfortunately are always battling probably 10 to 20% increases on average. And so with that being said, I wanted to give you a little bit of background on our mission. And our mission is really to, once we do get that renewal, then the fun begins, because we're going back and forth with these insurance carriers and really doing negotiations and trying to get this down and finding who may be more competitive in the market and going back and forth. So that right there takes weeks to do. And now that we've compiled all of this data, that's what I wanted to give you, high level. Hopefully hopefully Jeannie and I can simplify a lot of this and go from there. So just to give you a little bit about background about what happened. So Florida Blues renewal came in at 24.27%. All right, they were asking for about an additional, that equates to about $395,000. So it's a big ask, typical in our world from what we see. Doesn't matter whether we're talking the Panhandle or Jacksonville or down to this is just going on all over the United States. And so we want to bring every type of platform that we can to be able to look at alternative type of measures. So first thing that we did was we knew that Florida Blue had moved us onto something that gave us insight on the actual losses, on the premiums paid and the losses, and that was called balance funded. And we were on a balance funded, and it gave us the ability and hopes to possibly get some of our premiums back. And we moved there thinking that, hey, this is going to be, good for everybody. And the cost was a better cost at that time to move to this platform. Well, now Blue Cross is basically charging us, simply stated, they're almost charging us for the possibility of getting this refund back. So it's almost like, let me give you money so you can give me money back. So what we automatically do is say, hey, well, quote us the old way back to the fully insured and tell me where that stands. So that brought it down from 24% and got it down to 20%. All right. Then fast forward to all the negotiations back and forth. And obviously the fully insured model was going to be the most competitive model. So we negotiated it down to 8%. Okay, so the 8.06% is where we landed. Then we start going back and forth again, getting additional plans and that type of thing. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
and just to let you guys know, so we started out at a 395,000, 395,286. That was the first blush, right? That's what the initial increase looked like. With that negotiation, we got that, keeping everything exactly the same, we got it down to 131, 313 overall increase for the plan year. That's with 0 modifications to the plans.
Thank you. And then we started looking at a plan that closely resembled the current plan. There are some modifications, so that's what we're here to talk about. But it does give us the possibility of significantly reducing the healthcare premiums to recognize $197,000 savings. So let me discuss the key backbone component of that change is a network change. So employees, and I don't, employees may start to panic and all that, but hey, you can actually still have the old plan. So we could still run the old plan simultaneous to the new network, but I hate to call it a new network because this network's actually been in place for decades. It's called the Blue Care Network. Right now you're on the Blue Options Network. The difference is a PPO versus the HMO. But it's not like the old HMO that you and I used to know where you have to go and ask your primary care doctor if you can go to Andrews and get them to look at your shoulder or whatnot. You don't have to do that. It is a self-referral model. The reason why the HMO is cheaper is because on the state level, there's not the same taxes that have to be paid on premiums and those types of things, so it is a cheaper model for them to run. What are the disadvantages? The networks really resemble, and I've been on the Blue Care Network for years, the networks really, with the doctors, hospitals, all that, you're going to be very challenged to find a difference with whether you're in Santa Rosa, Escambia, or Okaloosa counties. I'll tell you that the main component of the difference is if somebody has some type of ongoing ailment to where they have to cross a state line, leave Florida, and go seek treatment outside of the state, that's the big difference, is I just can't simply refer myself to MD Anderson in Dallas or Sloan Kettering in New York for a cancer treatment or something. I would actually have to be on the PPO plan to be able to do those things. So that's why, our recommendation would be always to keep that core, to keep the PPO in place as well, if you were going to also offer a cost savings measure of offering the HMO network. But
And there are good options in Florida for cancer care and stuff.
yeah, Moffitt Cancer Center in Tampa. I mean, there's obviously Florida has Shands in Gainesville. There's a lot of different options.
All in network with the HMO plan.
Now, that doesn't mean that if you're on the HMO, what happens if I'm out of state and have an emergency? That's okay, because emergencies are always going to be covered no matter where you are. Whether it's on a vacation or whatnot. An emergency is an emergency. It's just if I chose to say, hey, I want a second opinion and I'm choosing to go to UAB in Birmingham or refer myself to a different facility, that would be the difference right there. So with that being said, a lot of employers, including municipalities, so whether we're talking about Escambia County running it as their primary plan or Santa Rosa County, it's the school board, all of it. So it's very common to see the primary plan be on a Blue Care chassis, and that's why the network is so big, is because so many of the municipalities and private employers are using this all over the place. So like I said, I mean, it's been there for a very long time, and it's a well-established network and probably the most commonly used network, whether I'm talking Blue options with Florida Blue or whether I'm talking Cigna or Aetna or anybody else for that matter. Okay, so did anybody have any questions on that before I moved on to?
No.
Okay, so we can dig in a little bit more, but just high level, let me finish up. We quoted a lot of different plans within the Blue Cross chassis so that we were getting the temperature of various PPO plans, of various HMO style plans, those Blue Option and Blue Care models. we went out to United Healthcare. United Healthcare actually came back with really competitive proposals. So we'll go through where they came in at. I believe that they came in at
About 1%.
at like 1.08%.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was saving $210,000. So United Healthcare had a wonderful proposal, full-blown PPO network, and so that was going to be a good potential replacement to consider as well. Aetna declined, so when they ran the census and ran everything through there, they just came out uncompetitive. They bailed out. Cigna actually did offer a rate of 14%, mirroring the current plan. So once we saw that, hey, they're not competitive, we didn't really pursue them any further. And then we looked at a captive. So a captive is really where it's a quasi self-funded type of model, and we looked at that to see if there was any cost savings there, and they were coming in at like 14%. So we knew that it was going to be best to stay underneath a fully insured platform with either Florida Blue or United. So just high level.
Would you back up? When you
Sure.
said that United came in at one and some change percent, is that a percentage over what we're currently paying or?
Under.
Under.
A percentage under.
Under what we're paying.
Yeah, there's two metrics here. There's 1% under what we're currently paying, but then the dollar value that Chad mentioned was compared to what our renewal cost would be. So when he says
Yes.
$200,000, that's $200,000 less than if we renew the
Current.
That
Correct.
makes sense then,
PPO.
okay. Thank you.
The primary benchmark is what you're paying now.
Right, okay.
I saw a big number down there. Yeah, thanks, Mark.
No, those are good questions. I mean, really, that's exactly what we need. Please ask questions, and we wanted to just lay the groundwork for the overall renewal, what we were faced with, what we did with marketing the insurance to other vendors, and then what we came back with a final negotiated cost. And then we're going to kind of circle back around. So just to touch base on some of the other things, which are obviously not the large dollar amount figures like medical insurance is, but on the dental insurance, we were faced with a 6% increase there. We marketed this as well. Much easier, a lot more competitors out there for dental insurance and life insurance and those types of things. And so we did find a leader of the pack, Guardian, who should already be familiar to a lot of people because they've been used here before. But Guardian is, they came in at holding the current rates, and so they were able to mirror.
That's only if we did the whole package with them.
Right.
If we've got the multiple options that we're
We're
going
going
to
to show you an overall package, kind of lay it all out once we get to that point.
Correct.
But
Okay, just
on the vision insurance, there was no increase. On the life insurance, there was an 8% increase. We were able to mitigate those costs, and actually we were able to lower the life insurance costs underneath one different scenario, so we'll circle back to that. The short-term disability was a 4% increase. So you can see why we also marketed the existing, what we term ancillary coverages, like the dental and life and disability, is because we were looking for savings there where we could find some. So, and then the long-term disability had a 10% increase. And this is normal from what we see. Carriers will just re-rate based on the census, and their current rates just may be higher. So once the carrier prices themselves on the market, you know, we've already gone out to bid and already have additional quotes in hand to be able to find additional savings. Okay, so which one would you like to hit next?
I don't know what's in their packet. I guess we need to kind of peek at what's in their packet.
Does
Do we
Does
want-
everybody have?
Follow along. You
Do we wanna
you
talk
can use
about
this
the-
one.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Yeah, so, that's just
I'm
great.
on the dental analysis.
Yeah, he was just giving you an overview of everything we've done. Now we're gonna start back at this area.
Yeah, that'll probably
just-
help.
Yeah,
We can
exactly.
refer where it's at.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the order right here.
Yeah, okay, so that, we've already kind of gone
Yeah.
over that. Wait,
Yeah.
this slide's basically going to show you the differences between the HMO Plan 60, which is the Blue Care plan that Chad was talking about, versus the Blue Options PPO 3559, which is your current, right?
Yeah.
So he's already talked about the in-network only. The other thing is the Blue Care HMO, while it does have a lower family deductible, it does have a higher individual out-of-pocket maximum and a higher family out-of-pocket maximum. So there's some give and take for these savings, if you will. We ran the Blue Care option with 2 different pharmacy tiers. One was a 7-tier pharmacy option. One was a 3-tier pharmacy option. 3-tier is very similar to what you have now, okay? 7-tier pharmacy, once we started diving into that, we came to the conclusion that it's probably going to be pretty disruptive to several of your people on the plan because of the high-cost drugs that we were able to find out from Florida Blue what your top 10 drugs were. Out of those top 10 drugs, if we move to the 7-tier, you've got, out of those top 10, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those moving from a $30 copay to a $150 copay. So we realized how disruptive that could be, right? So then we said, well, let's look at a different pharmacy option that's still going to bring us the savings, but not be as impactful to the employees. And so we looked at another 3-tier, and what we realized then is anybody who would be paying $30, they would be paying that $60 for these drugs, right? So they're still going to feel a little bit of a push with it, but not as extensive as you would with that 7-tier pharmacy option.
Okay.
But, it's all about a little more skin in the game, if you will, right? Because in order to bring it down, that's how we get to these numbers.
Is insulin on that list?
A lot of the, as far as the top 10 drugs, insulin is not. However, you do have Mounjaro and Ozempic, which are 2 of the very high-cost diabetic drugs on that list. And that's correct.
Diabetic.
Yeah, the diabetic drugs.
And normally it's rare to see that diabetic drugs fall in those top 10s is because of the fact that there's so many different options for the diet, and plus there's so much less than in comparison to Mounjaro and the Ozempics.
And your insulins are still going to be very inexpensive. It's these specialty drugs that are driving these costs,
So the
right?
insulin would not be part of the 50%, and with that tier 7?
We would have to look at it line by
I think
line.
Mounjaro would.
Mounjaro would be 150. You are correct. But the insulin, no, you wouldn't see that significant of a cost. Jump on that one. There's so many different types of diabetic drugs out there. And literally what I do at my enrollment meetings, especially when we have plan changes like this, is I will tell people, listen, if you have a drug and you want to know how much if you tell me how much it's costing you now, I can basically give you an idea of what it's going to cost you if you move to this plan, right? Because we want to make sure that they're making an informed decision. And I can actually bring those PDLs with me, those pharmacy drug lists, prescription drug lists, and I will sit down with the employee and review them if they would like me to do that.
So right now, just a little bit about how does the current drug plan work? It's $10 for generic, $30 preferred brands, and depending on the type of deal that Florida Blue's getting with CVS and Walgreens, I mean, this is how drugs fall into particular categories, is really by cost. So then that middle tier was $30, and then we get into the $50 non-preferred brand. Under the Blue Care plan that we were really looking at with Plan 60, that would be, it's still $10 for the generics, but then it would go to, I just lost my place.
Right.
10, 60, 100. So the middle one, instead of 30, it would be 60, and instead of 50, it'd be 100. So like Jeannie was saying, that's where we come in with, during open enrollment, and we help educate and try to find affordable solutions and that type of thing.
And that's with the HMO.
Correct, and it has the 20% on the specialty.
It has a
drugs.
20% on the
So-
specialty.
And so when we first started going through this process, my first go through of this was, oh my gosh, this HMO plan is very similar, and it 100% leaning that way. And then we started looking a little bit closer and talking about the big differences with the out of network and then the prescription drug plan. And it was the prescription drug plan that really kind of concerned me, and we were working on this up until like Friday afternoon, getting this squared away. Because what we don't want to do is switch this plan and leave it'd be a small handful or some handful of employees with some really high drug costs in 2026 that can't be mitigated somehow. Now, we're offering this buy-up option, but it's certainly not cheap either. It's a couple $100 a month that they would have to do that. So once again, One Digital is offering consulting services on an individual basis to see if they should be concerned, if we wanted to go that route. But I certainly, that's still my concern, is that we would potentially be having an employee kind of stuck out there with a really high drug cost. Now, I guess, and you guys can explain more, there are ways when you do have to pay a percent of that whole cost, there are ways to mitigate that down too, so.
Right, and so what we do is we don't just tell them what their that their drug cost is gonna be based off of the plan that they choose, right? We help them go out and look. GoodRx is a great resource to use. When you go out to GoodRx, you can literally see the cost of the drug, and then if you keep scrolling, it will show you, hey, is there a generic available for that? Can you take the generic, right? Then there's also manufacturer's coupons, the other thing is the patient's assistance, There's those types of things where if you utilize those services through the manufacturers or through those patient assistants, you can oftentimes get those specialty drugs down to a $0. Now, or $10 copay. We can't promise that on every drug. It's just something that we would offer to assist the employees with if they were concerned about which plan is going to be the better plan for me. We could help them determine where that cost is going to come in for them.
And then one thing to add, I think 2 of those drugs on your top 10 list were specialty.
Yes, we did have 2. There was a Tremfya and a Palynziq. I'm not quite sure what for. Those were 50% cost share. Those were tier 2s. And with those, I did specifically go out and look, and they do have assistance available on those 2 drugs. Now, when we say top 10 drugs, we're not saying top 10 utilized drugs. We're saying top 10 high cost, the cost. This is how you're coming in for the cost, right? So there may be only 1 fill on those, but because of the cost of it, it's coming in, up at the top of the list.
And how easy is it to go in and find the savings,
It is so simple. I can actually pull it up on my phone, right when we're talking with them, I can pull it up on my computer, and it's just as simple as going to GoodRx, taking that name of that drug, putting it into the search bar, and then it pulls up all that information. Once you get to and you can look at what the cost would be if you didn't have insurance. You can look at what pharmacies have it cheaper locally, because it goes by where you're at, and you can look at, is it cheaper at CVS, or does it cost less at Walgreens, Walmart? It looks at all of those Publix. And then, you keep scrolling down, and then that's where you start seeing that this drug has a manufacturer's coupon, pay as little as $10 or pay as little as $0. And then it also, following that, shows that if there's any patient's assistance. Now, when I'm in my renewal meetings, obviously, this is something that I would talk to the employees about if they needed my help. What happens if they leave the meeting, they have a new drug, and they're not sure what to do, right? Well, that's where we have our client advocates that are assigned. And our client advocate, we recommend your employees utilizing that service, then our client advocate will help them initiate to find out if there's any savings with the manufacturer's coupons, if there's any patient's assistance. So we have a lot of resources available to your employees. As long as they reach out, we are happy to help them, and we can generally help them find a solution.
Now, that coupon or whatever, that is, the employee doesn't have to go every time they have it refilled and look for that coupon or anything. It's good
No.
for the whole time.
Correct. You
Doing
sign
it.
up for it, and it tells you how many fills you can get on it. The other thing, because I had to start taking a new drug recently, when I went to Walgreens, they're like, hey, you want us to see if there's any savings on GoodRx? And they'll look at it on the pharmacy for you now as
My
well.
doctor does. Too.
Yeah, yeah.
What's interesting, what Jeannie's really talking about, if you think about this whole shopping thing that we're talking about, is just consumer-driven healthcare. And no matter what group we're looking at, we were meeting earlier on an 800 employee group based in South Carolina, all over the United States. And this group it's amazing looking at the number of drug lists that they're taking and how much those are. what used to account for 10% of medical care is now up to 30, 40%. I mean, just the drug piece alone can be 30 to 40% of the premium. So when your renewal's coming up, the carrier's going to pull your current demographics. They run it through their system on whatever plan you have. So it spits out what's called a manual rate, and that manual rate's kind of like the going rate for that particular thing. Then they're going to take your losses and they're going to go look at what's really been, how much in drugs was paid, how much in the pharmacy side, how much claims for inpatient, outpatient, all those things. And once they compile all that data, then they're applying something called trend, which is medical inflation. And then basically, simply stated, then that's how your renewal comes out. And the larger you are, the more your loss history impacts your group. Obviously, a 5 or 10 person employee group would be, they'd get a crazy renewal if one person got cancer. But it's a pooled plan under 50 employees. But once you exceed 50 employees, you're in mid-market, is what they call it, and your experience is coming into play. So they may blend it 40 to 50% of your experience in with your census and all the other things. So that 24% initially is Florida Blue trying to come back, trying to say, hey, we're trying to pad for this next coming year. And this is where we get to keep them in line, because we go out and shop and get them to get their numbers straight again. But this is going to be a normal conversation always. One thing I can guarantee is death, taxes, and increases on your health insurance. It's always going to be coming at us. It's just a matter of how do we handle it, and how do we wear an employer hat and give everyone, save for the employer side, but also give employees the best possible health care and keep costs down for them as well. So we have to wear multiple hats when we're doing this. But looking at what we found, especially with going to a two-model style plan to where you have a base plan, so to speak, and employees can buy up to a richer plan. If I knew that I had cancer and if it was an extra, $200 or whatever, I may not think 2 seconds about it, because I want that ability to go to MD Anderson in Dallas or wherever. So the people that are on higher cost medications or on, have a particular specialized ailment. I have a person who likes to fly to Philadelphia to a specialized eye clinic once a year just for a checkup. And it gives that person that flexibility and freedom to be able to do those kind of things.
And I
Ms.
think-
Hanson, I wanted to interrupt and ask about the patient assistance. That is income-based primarily, and they are quite forgiving with those incomes, because you could make $65,000, you could make $80,000, but the limitations typically are you can only get that medication for up to a year on that program, and number two, some of them caveat it by saying you can't have other insurance. So that is a
That's all
concern.
the stuff we would have to look at. But when you look at the manufacturer's coupons, those are basically saying if you have insurance. If you have insurance for those drugs, that's when we're going to allow you to use the manufacturer coupon. They don't want you using those coupons. And the coupons are generally going to be the bigger cost savings. The problem with the coupon is that if you don't have insurance coverage, they're not going to give you that, because the manufacturer coupon does require that you have drug coverage on your insurance plan. So yes, there are different ways. And the patient's assistance program, I can't speak on each of them individually. They're all very different. But yes, there are some limitations to those patient assistance programs.
And sometimes they're a bit of a nightmare to get into effect, back and forth with the doctor's office and justification, et cetera, et cetera.
And I'm going to revert back to, that's where our client advocates have become very beneficial to our team, because our client advocates, when you call and you speak with them and you tell them what you have going on, you only have to call them that one time, get the permission. They'll speak on your behalf to not only the insurance carrier, but to your providers. And they work that issue from A to Z. And this is one of the things that we really feel sets us apart at One Digital, because we don't know any other broker that does this, especially at no cost. But for instance, we, we can get that client advocate involved, and that client advocate is going to work that, like I said, A to Z. They're going to give updates to the employee as they're working through the process, but they're going to see it through to a resolution, right?
That's very advantageous to the employee who's trying to navigate the quagmire.
You got it, and that's exactly what we're doing. Because, with health insurance, if you don't know the questions to ask, it gets very confusing. And I have known so many people. I mean, I've been there myself. You don't ask the right questions, and you don't get the answer that you're looking for, or you're not getting the right answer, right? And you can call Florida Blue Customer Service, Membership and Billing, or Members and Member Services, and you can talk to one person and get one answer, and you can talk to another person and get another answer. And we realized that at One Digital, and that's why we implemented our client advocate team, because every one of our client advocates has a little bit of a different background. One of them has membership or Medicare background. One of them has, he worked internally in the claims department at one of the big insurance carriers. So they really do, our employees that work with them really cannot say enough good things about them. They're very involved, and they're very caring individuals.
And that's interesting that you should mention Medicare, because the Medicare Advantage, United Healthcare is being probed by the feds for billing and fraud.
Yeah, and that's another thing that our client advocates can get involved in, is if you don't think that your claim was paid correctly, or if you think you've been billed too much, they get in there and they will dig through all of that paperwork. They will look at your explanation of benefits right next to your bills, and they will tell you, you should pay this, but you shouldn't pay this, and they will break it down for you.
Thank you.
And those, we say advocates, I mean, they do work as a team, but really, we have one person. So when somebody calls, they're getting that same person. It's not a call, some huge call center or anything like that.
That's right.
We have somebody designated to the employees. And what's neat is especially the people that are calling that advocate, whether it's Wes or Julianne or whoever's up for bat, who's designated to that account, they form relationships. And we show up at an employee meeting and they don't want to see us. They run straight to the advocate and we want to catch up on life and that type of thing. So it really is a very personalized tool for the employee.
For someone who is really sick, I can tell you, we have had our advocates become personal friends, right? They become invested in these employees. So it's not just a job for them. They really do become invested in the employees.
Yeah. So were the other pages up on the beyond here? Was it
Not on the
here?
script, it's all in the book, so if you just tell them where to look in the book.
Yeah.
While we're doing that, one thing I wanted to make sure we go over is that the United Healthcare option, obviously, we're talking about switching carriers. And that means, for the employee, what it means is getting a new card. Generally, and I'll let these guys expand upon that, it's viewed as a minor inconvenience, but we're not aware of it causing any real issue locally for seeing any doctors or anything. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to mention when Chad was talking about the negotiations, we also are very mindful on the negotiations. We beat them up, but we also have to be careful not to beat them up too much, because this year, if we tried to get you down below that 8%, right, we got you down to a 0. Next year, you could be facing a 40% increase. So
They'll
we're
come
very,
back and remind us of these type of things. It's very frustrating.
so we're very mindful of all of that.
So if we can, inside the book, if we can bypass this, we're going to come back to these more detailed chart. And I just wanted to touch on this because these were the plan designs. So if you said, hey, nuts and bolts, what is really changing? The first page in that booklet is going to be the current balance funded renewal, the one that came in at 24%, and that was negotiated to 11%. As we flip over, the next page is that fully insured model that we had negotiated to the 8%. So let's think of the 8% as kind of our benchmark right there, is where we got that particular plan down to. And then those next two plans off to the right, we're looking at the 7-tier drug card and the 3-tier drug card on the Blue Care Plan 60 that we were going to talk about. So we tried to highlight in either red or green the differences. Red is bad to the employee, green is good to the employee. So with that being said, when we go through this, It's still a $500 deductible, so that really mirrors the current plans. A $1,500 calendar year deductible for family as a family maximum deductible still, but the new the HMO Blue Care plan would be $1,000. Okay, the co-insurance with the current plan is 80%. This plan takes it to 90%. So far so good. Now we're coming into a red area, and what's the difference there? This is out of pocket. So let's say that we've paid co-pays and we've paid deductibles, and the employee's saying, hey, when does this stuff stop? I mean, I've paid all this stuff this year. When does it stop? This is where it stops. An out-of-pocket maximum is where the insurance company says you've had enough, and once you hit that number, they're going to pretty much cut it off, and they're responsible for 100% of the cost after your out-of-pocket maximum. So what this does is you can see that on the individual plan, it takes it up from $2,500 to $3,500 per year. This is calendar year. And then it takes it from $5,000 to $7,000 on the family side. Okay, so that there's a change. The co-pays is just a $5 change. So it's going from 20 to 25 and 40 to 45 for your primary care doctor visit or your specialist. So anybody who's not a family care doctor would be a specialist, dermatologist, and those types of things. And then we go into hospitalization. So obviously, I skipped over preventive health care. That's always going to be covered at 100% if it's preventive. We go into hospitalization. And right now, you have option 1 level hospitals and option 2 level hospitals is either $600 or $1,000. Now it's $325 per day for an inpatient admission, but then they cap you at that 5 days. I believe that's mathematically right. 5 days would be $1,625 as far as, and they cap you at that particular point. But if you were only in there for 1 or 2 days, then, it would probably be the same, roughly around that $650. So that is pretty on par still. Outpatient surgery is a $200 copay currently. This would be $275. So still very much in line comparatively speaking to what we see most employers in the Panhandle offer. And then we start getting into ambulatory surgical centers. So that's like a standalone, like North Florida Surgery Center, standalone facility, not associated maybe with Baptist or Sacred or West Florida. That'd be $200. And then we get into independent diagnostic x-rays. So advanced x-rays, $80, and then $45 for normal x-ray. So you can see that the plans themselves are pretty close on par with each other looking at them. It's really more about the network, and it's also more, in my opinion, about the formularies for the pharmacy. So, the 7-tier drug card, yes, we priced it out, but I think that in looking at the cost difference, the 3-tier drug card makes a lot more sense because it's not as impactful to an employee if we chose to go down, to offer this HMO style plan. And, the savings is $177,000 compared to the current premiums that you're paying. So it's actually underneath those current premiums. So for the employee that is maybe young and healthy, hey, this plan is just a no-brainer. But then somebody that has an ailment or health concerns could buy up to a more expensive plan.
And once again, to read it, we know based on that list, we have at least probably 2 employees that would be affected by that specialty drug cost. Of course, it could be one person on both of those, but it's probably 2 people. 2 or more people would be affected by that. So that's just something to keep in mind.
I have a question for you, Jeff, real quick. You gave this same spiel to Jeff. Who all was in that meeting with you when?
Myself,
Jared, were you?
Jared, and then we also had a similar discussion without them during our budget meeting. We started to dive into some stuff with Pam, and I think Mark was there for some of that.
Okay.
That kind of came up when we started talking about it. It wasn't an official discussion.
The reason I ask is because this is obviously a ton of information, and a whole hour to go through it is just not.
Right, and that's why we try to do this as a workshop, because there's a lot here.
I guess my question is, you've been through, this is your second time going through it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You probably already have in your mind what you think would be a good idea. Jared, you probably do as well, which direction that we should go. Which one would you, if I had to
Well,
call
like
it
I
out?
said, up until Thursday, Friday, I was sold on this HMO, And then as we really start diving into these details, it looks like we would have a couple employees that could be affected on that cost side with the drugs. So then you're tasked with this decision of, well, we can pick this plan that saves the company money, but we know we're going to put a couple employees in a situation that's not so good, and that's a hard decision. It's hard for me to strongly advocate for that position. So my mind kind of started to gravitate towards this United Healthcare option that doesn't have that issue. So, like I said, we were
Recording in
working.
progress.
Like I said, we were working hard on this thing on even Friday afternoon, and we just want to make sure we're not, by going to a plan that saves some money, we don't do something detrimental to any of the employees. So
And this plan becomes implemented,
October 1. Real quick, just
October
talk about the time frame we're up against here.
Yeah, so right now, you're an October 1 renewal. We're ahead of the game still, right? But we would like to get in front of the employees probably early to mid-September to talk with them and set up those enrollment meetings. That's something we would have to schedule. And get in front of them like we do every year and go over the details. Now, I know, with the United Healthcare, I just wanted to mention, and I know we've talked about the HMO. With United Healthcare, you're looking now at different pharmacy, right? And when you change carriers, it would probably feel a little more disruptive if your employees changed from Florida Blue and to United Healthcare. Because now, if they have any pre-auths on file for their drugs, they got to resubmit those, right? Pre-authorizations for those drugs, surgeries, things like that. So the Blue Care 60.
Excuse me, will you check to make sure that these people can get in? Right outside.
So the Blue Care 60, while it's an HMO, it would be probably less impactful in that regard, if you will. But, we did detail them in, if you look at these options, it does detail the entire package. Because if you go with the Florida Blue options, right, our thought process is that Holly Navarre is going to still continue to pay 100% towards the employee cost, right? However, we're going to shift that so that you're paying for the Blue Care plan. And then if employees wanted to, they could buy up to the more expensive PPO option, right? And so that's why we started looking at the different drug plans, is because we know it's less invasive, if you will, than moving.
And there are some other gears inside of the United that would work very differently than, right now, the Blue Care, Florida Blue has co-pays, whereas United Healthcare, there's a lot more deductible and co-insurance that's coming into play. So there's a lot more of those explanation of benefits that they're going to receive, and a lot more tracking and that type of thing. So they're just a little bit different.
And another thing to mention with Florida Blue is they did, knowing that you all are interested in starting a wellness program, they did offer some wellness incentives, $7,500, and you simply get that money, you turn in the receipts, and they give Holly Navarre Water the check for whatever you utilize those wellness funds for.
We can assist with the guidance and coaching on how to make sure we maximize those dollars.
And that was which company?
Florida Blue.
Florida Blue. Two medications, the tamoxifen and AstraZeneca, is that on the three-tier pharmacy options at all?
I can't speak on that, right, I don't, that's not on our top
That was just a top 10 list by cost.
Yeah.
That wasn't.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we don't have every single drug, but we can definitely look at those. I just don't have the PDLs with me.
So, do the employees pay any portion of this, or does the water system pay the entirety of the premiums and
Currently, they
co-pays?
pay the entirety of the premium.
All of it?
So we have our own co-pays, the company only pays the premium. So deductibles, co-pays, your drug costs all come out of pocket of the employee.
Correct.
So like if I go to the doctor, I pay my copay, I go pick up my meds, I'm fighting with them for the insurance to cover my meds, because they never do. So then I go back to the doctor, get a referral for that med, and then it all comes out of my pocket.
But the premium is paid by the.
Okay.
so I'll throw this out to the rest of the board members real quick. We've got about 5 minutes before the other meeting starts. I personally am not prepared to make a decision on this tonight. I think maybe another hour would be good. If we could schedule a meeting maybe before the end of the month so that we'll know something in September and
Yeah, if y'all
we could
don't
even
mind
have
getting back
If we
together.
all agreed, we could even have a board action without.
Yeah, and then what that would also allow is if there's any, from this good discussion tonight, any specific questions, we can start working on those to answer questions and stuff. So,
And before we adjourn this piece of the meeting, this right here is a very important page, pages I wanted to go through. The balance funded renewal, we already know that that's going to be more, so we're going to just eliminate that. I think what should be focused on is this fully insured pays is if you wanted to write on there, renew as is. We know that the renew as is cost, by the time we factored in the ancillary savings that we could package together, we're actually at 7.4%. Okay, so that is an option. So that is choice A. As we flip over, the next page was the 7-tier drug card. Okay, so the 7-tier drug card, as we mentioned, hey, that's not really what we feel that would be best for the employee. And then we get into the 3-tier drug card, which is this -10 number. I think that that choice A or B to kind of simplify our discussions. A, B, and then obviously C would be full-blown moving to United. So it's an ABC type of thing.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that simplifies some of what we just discussed, so that page can drill down total numbers, getting it as least costly as possible while we are actually still keeping the best benefits as possible.
And along with that, if we do have another meeting, we can actually pull these up on the big screen, so we can talk through them line by line, and you guys can see exactly what we're looking at. We can create that PowerPoint, if you will.
So for the record, right now, the total annual expenditure for premiums on behalf of the employees at Holly Navarre Water System is what amount?
Employees pay $0 for premiums.
Right.
So
But
yeah,
the
he's
water
asking, what does it
system's
cost?
What's your
outlay-
actual cost, and the overall cost as you currently stand is $1,628,503. I'm sorry, $1,628,503.
keep in mind, when you say Holly Navarre Water System, these numbers here on employees is all three companies. This is not just the water system.
Messy.
So you've got 5, 6 folks at Messy, and you've got about 10, 11 at the club at Hidden Creek.
And they're all
They're on
covered
the
under
same
this.
plan. So that is not all Holly Navarre Water System employees. Keep
Okay.
that in mind as well.
I'd just like to say, switching to the United Healthcare, while it might be a good deal this year, is it a pretty fair statement that that's a first-year premium, and next year we'd probably be looking at increases with them?
Possible.
It always concerns me.
Yeah, so, 8% is not that high of an increase, and to keep employees with the current insurance that they have, rather than disrupt their situation and switch to a different carrier and, all
That's a
that.
great option. And once again, we'd love to do that. I just didn't want to not present these other options to the
Right.
board.
There's
So,
always
appreciate it. Yeah,
choices, and
absolutely.
it's our job to
Yeah.
present those choices,
Yeah.
so.
Right. Well, no, I appreciate the opportunity to save money, but we're also looking at, retaining employees and
that's absolutely right.
offering a good benefits package to them, and, switching insurance companies every year is not a good
tough.
situation for employees.
You're correct.
I
And
agree.
And that does affect your rating oftentimes if you are an insurance jumper,
Right.
right? Yeah.
And so this insurance has been in effect for a couple of years
3 to
now?
4 years, is my understanding.
So
There's
it's
been
well
some very small
established?
modifications, but
Okay.
it's been pretty consistent.
All right.
All right. Is everybody in agreement? We need another meeting?
I'll get that scheduled and
Yes,
we'll
if you don't
make
mind,
that
thank you
work.
so much. We'll work for them and their schedule as well, and we'll
Come back.
we'll make it
That's
happen.
what- That's what
Not
you're
a problem.
We'll make it
Now,
happen.
did you want us to stick around for the board meeting, or are we
You
good?
don't
Oh, you're good, yeah,
Okay,
you're
you're
absolutely
good.
good, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
We
you very
appreciate
much.